Good evening, Life Group leaders. I'm so really stoked to be able to coach you through and give you some tips on how to lead this evening. The whole thing with conflict is that when we do it, we feel really vulnerable. And so people tend to avoid it or do it poorly. So many of us have had this so poorly modeled for us in our families. We get families that just completely avoid conflict, or families that just blow up, or go through that cycle, avoid for as long as they can until they blow up. And so a lot of people haven't actually seen this done well. And so we've got to give people a different vision for conflict, a different understanding of what it can be and how to do it. The first question goes, conflict seems like a horrible part of life. Why do you think Scripture encourages us to make it a normal, even life-giving part of life? When your view on conflict changes, when it changes from conflict is really this bad thing to actually conflict is a good part of life, it's a normal part of life, any good relationship is going to have a healthy amount of conflict happening. And you get people to see it with a different lens, that conflict can be really well done and actually helps build a relationship when it's done right. It helps people to take a different approach to it. Something that we're trying to do, and Paul sharing his story, he was so good. The reality is Paul is probably one of the best people at conflict I know. But when you get people to laugh at themselves and see the lighter side of conflict, like, hey, this is how I actually act like an idiot in conflict. When people can laugh at themselves, what you're doing is two things. One, you're taking away the real sting of it, and two, you're normalizing conflict and our responses to it. And that's really what the whole point of that first question is to do. Here's what we don't want to do. We don't want people to start saying, well, there was this one conflict with this person and it blew up like this, trying to get people on their side. We're not doing that. We're trying to get people to build a self-awareness for themselves, how they respond to conflict. Because when you know how you tend to respond in conflict, it empowers you to notice the warning signs and begin to respond in a different way. Question number 2 says, most people tend towards fight or flight. How do you fight and how do you flight? And again, this is building on that self-awareness issue, to understand that, hey, it's normal. When you go towards fight or flight, it's normal. It's not healthy, but it's normal. So we need to ask the question, how do we fight or how do we flight? Paul is a very logic-driven person. He's got a teaching gift, and so he tends to use logic to push his agenda. For myself, I tend to use a mixture of my passion and logic and emotion, which is really not helpful. And then how do you flight? Sometimes people just go silent, or they just avoid the issue, or they just write the person off in their mind. They kind of just go, that person, and they write them off, so that it stops them from having to actually deal with the subjects. And so when, again, asking these questions and getting people to look at themselves helps us laugh at ourselves, helps us build self-awareness. The third question here is, think of a conflict with someone where you have responded with fight or flight. What do you really want for that relationship? How can you take steps towards doing that conflict well? You see, what happens is we start with the best intentions. We actually come in, sometimes we start actually coming in thinking like, hey, I've really been wronged here, I need to put you right. But generally speaking, we come in with this view like, I actually want to heal this relationship. I'm having this discussion because I wanted to get to a better place. And so we start with really good motives, but at some point when the conflict starts to go and you've hooked a response from that person and they've hooked a response from you, you start acting like you want something completely different. And so what you start acting like you want is you want to be right. You want to win this argument. You want to show the other person that they're wrong. You want them to admit their fault. And so you go in with the best intentions, but in reality your intentions shift during the course of that conflict. And so by helping people going, hey, what I want here is I want a healthy relationship. What I want here is to really repair this relationship, get a better understanding of you, help me understanding how what I'm doing is not helpful to you, help you understand that what you're doing is not helpful to me because I value this relationship and I want to bring it to a great place. And for most of us, that's really our heart. And when we keep that motive throughout, it enables us to keep acting that way and keep fighting for that end, so that if someone starts to say stuff that's hurtful and starts to hook this response, you can deflect that and go, let's actually get to the heart here. This is what I want for this relationship. This is what I want from this conflict. Can we work together to try and find that a happy solution? And really, guys, this is, you're not going to have the whole conflict discussion all in one night, but what you are going to do is normalize conflict, help people understand, get self-awareness around how they do conflict, and really get people to ask themselves the hard issue: what do I really want from conflict when I do it? It's going to give you a much better chance of being able to do conflict well. So have a great life group tonight, and we really trust that you have some lively discussions.